I asked in the last edition if anybody knew where this new photo was taken, and one person responded and got it right. Samantha Greenberg got her PhD at the University of Utah, so she knew that it was Little Cottonwood Canyon. I took it driving back from skiing at Alta Ski Resort. A clinical informaticist is introduced into season 2 of the Pitt, so I thought it'd be fun to compare their representation of us with our own perception and to analyze their rollout of ambient AI in the show. But first, there are many realistic scenarios in the show, and as someone who lived in Pittsburgh for 10 years, it's fun to recognize the nods to Pittsburgh places and events. In the opening scene, Dr. Robbie rides a motorcycle across the Roberto Clemente Bridge, which connects the Pirates PNC Park on one side and the road where my son's high school was, the Center for Arts and Performing Arts. But let's move on to the show and to clinical informatics. Dr. Al-Hashimi is introduced as a clinical informaticist. She's methodical, rule-driven, and serious about quality improvement. How realistic is their representation of clinical informatics and how AI is being used in the emergency department? I had a conversation this week with 3 clinical informaticians with frontline knowledge. Jonathan Reeder and Rob Turr are both ER docs. Ling Chu is the CMIO of ambulatory care and one of the people responsible for the rollout of AI at UT Southwestern.
The one thing I hope that we don't take from this is that the only person who can be a clinical informaticist is somebody who's obsessed with quality in the moment of emergency care and has to play by the rules and doesn't keep an open mind to the real pragmatic ways of doing things. And that paper sometimes is a great option, or a marker on a whiteboard, or a marker on somebody's chest if we're referring back to season 1 in disaster management. And information can take all forms. And so I just hope that people don't take that persona to be the only persona that a clinical informatician can take.
Because we have so much great representation from, we have several informaticians in our department. So I feel like we are more of a collaborative effort with the pure clinicians, whereas her approach seemed to be very much I have this tool and you have to use it.
So when she brings the ambient scribe on her phone into the ED, and on day 1, no one's really heard of it or interacted with it before, and she gets permission from the patient to use it. What's it really like to implement AI in the ED?
That almost seemed like she was the vendor coming in to do a demo. There's no way that she's going to be the only person that has access to this tool. I mean, there would have been months and months of pilot testing and communications. And so, the big reveal is not going to be that one day this one doc walks in and right and pulls out her phone and it's this huge surprise.
I mean, to Jonathan's point, all of these tools have been under months and months of testing and piloting. There might be a situation where in the pilot phase, like for example, I was the only one using the tool in my own clinic because I was the only one who was in the pilot. But I mean, in reality, when you start implementing this, everybody have access, and it's a matter of who's comfortable using it.
I asked them what they thought about ambient scribes in their practice.
There's an intimacy that comes in real life from using the ambient tool. And at Parkland, for instance, part of the expectation is you say, not just we are using this tool, it is we are using this tool so that I can focus on you instead of focusing on the computer. And I have found for the most part, that is real, right? I do pay more attention because that voice in the back of your head that's saying, you got to keep onto this detail, you got to remember all these little things and not lose track of the conversation. That's not a thing anymore. You can just focus on what the person is saying and engage with the person in front of you, knowing that you have a helper that's recording all that.
In the Pitt, the trainees seemed like they'd never seen this before, never heard of it. She spouts off a lot of statistics, a lot of research on it, and they all are just wide-eyed about what? Is that how it is?
So I that's not very realistic. In this day and age, at the very minimum, they've all used Grammarly. They've used other, they most likely they've already used ChatGPT in their own life. They've used some of the Canva AI, to create their slide deck. A lot of our new trainees are, very tech savvy already. So and just with our own group, I can tell you just with the internal medicine residents, our own group of residents are all, I just did kind of an informal, survey of the group that was in clinic one day, and they're all like, yeah, let me have it. I want to use it.
Will using scribes interfere with training of clinical documentation?
Documentation is such an interesting thing because it's not one thing. It is a constellation of your ability to capture the clinical information and perform a physical exam, your ability to synthesize that information into a narrative and an assessment and plan, It's about your writing skills and your ability to put that down into writing. It's your ability to navigate the tools that you're dealing with. Um, it's the Wild West when it comes to the impact on trainees. They're going to be using it. We have an obligation to train them, but we also have an obligation to teach them. And so I think this is the conflict that program directors from across the country and GME offices and technologists across the country are trying to figure out.
Dr. Robbie is very resistant to anything that she brings forward, not only the technology, but also, the patient passport. And she sent him all these documents and things to read, and he didn't read them about change and quality improvement.
So it's kind of an us versus them mentality. There is an administration, and the caricature is that they don't care about patients. They care about metrics, numbers, money, what have you, but it's not patients. And you have the honorable, bedside nurse or physician, clinician, who all they care about is what's right for the patient in this moment. And the reality, of course, given that most of us kind of straddle that fence and play both roles from time to time, the reality is that you need both.
Tell me about your experience with patients and the scribes.
Yeah, I've used it for a little over a year now, and a year and a half, I guess now. So being in primary care, a lot of patients have already come for multiple follow-up, and so I mean, it's just usual. As a matter of fact, I was in clinic. I had a patient ask me, "Are you going to record this time?"
And so I think it's important how we educate our users about how does the technology work? What's the technology's purpose? What is the chain of custody for the data, right? Because those questions are going to come up, and it's going to have to be, we're not always going to be there to answer those questions. So those frontline clinicians, they need to be educated enough to be able to answer them.
The editor of Jamia just published an editorial about several new publications on ambient scribes. 3 of them focus on clinical and organizational perspectives and 1 on patient perspectives. A 5th addresses stigmatizing language in EHRs. She says that further research is needed on patient perspectives, and also we need more studies that look more deeply at note quality. Here's Kari on Saturday morning, unsuspecting of the doom that awaits him with the cone of shame to keep him from licking the abscess on his paw. Maybe they'll lance his abscess in a future episode of The Pitt.